Dane Wigington with GeoEngineeringWatch.org radio for June 3rd, 2015. Anybody who's watching the larger picture can see a lot going on. Unfortunately, a lot of people aren't watching that bigger picture. Got Russ with us today, as always. Couldn't have the show without Russ. Takes care of everything on the technical end, and there's a lot on top of that. It's been a massive help to us at GeoEngineering Watch. And we'll take calls by quarter after, try to answer as many questions as we can. And I want to try to keep on a certain theme today, if possible. I'm curious to know, again, the kind of resistance that people are, activists in the field are getting from those around them that they're trying to wake up, and how well activists are holding up to that resistance. Because as the walls close in, the resistance from those who wish to remain in denial, who do not wish to face the fact the party is ending by the day, their tenacity of resistance grows. They become more adamant about their denial. And that can be discouraging for those of us that are trying to wake them up. But if we keep in mind that these people in denial are not going to be able to stay there much longer, like it or not, that should be solace, and that all you have to do is plant the seed. It's going to be forced to sprout soon. The weather anomalies continue around the globe. Where would one start? Of course, we saw Texas slaughtered. We had places in Chile have just been wiped out with record flooding. Places in China wiped out. We have, I think, the death toll in India now from the scorching heat is hovering somewhere near 2,500. And keep in mind, that's the official reading, which they try to keep that down. The authorities in every country try to downplay, not exaggerate, but downplay the severity of climate issues at this point, because they're all in one form or another participating in the climate engineering insanity. Whether it's actively or passively, they're all a part of it. They're all a part of helping to cover it up. They're all a part of the data falsification in an opposite direction of what most people, especially in the U.S., have been trained to believe. A great many people in the U.S. have been fed propaganda that the temperature readings, for example, are being falsified to the upside. And that's an absolute lie. And I speak firsthand on that because we have checked ourselves. In Northern California, a colleague of mine with the Union of Concerned Scientists has monitored over a 6-month period and found a 4.6 degree temperature discrepancy in Northern California, that the actual reading on the ground was 4.6 degrees as a day and night combined combination higher than the official readings. Other locations around the country, we've seen the same. Why would this be? Because those in power, and this shouldn't be hard to see, again, for those who are really looking at all the pieces of the puzzle. At this point, regardless of what they've done in the past, and this is where we have to set our compass heading every day, because the game changes. It's not static. It's fluid. It's in flux. But the power structure has long since abandoned any effort to try to disclose the warming for various purposes. It's so bad now, they're simply trying to hide it. And they've done so quite successfully because a lot of people want to believe that it's not happening. When we're seeing the kind of data falsification that we're seeing, and it's in one direction, and when we have agencies like Weather Channel, Weather Central, Weather Underground, all owned by the power structure, controlling the message, focusing only on things like the record Boston snowstorm, for example, all winter long. We talked about this before, only on the cold, cold, cold U.S., which is about to get another cool down, eastern U.S., by the way, in the next few days. It looks like that's what's scheduled. Temperature swings of 50, 60 degrees. Now the norm as they try frantically to cool certain regions off, even if only for a short time. When we see these power structure-owned agencies like Weather Channel, Weather Central, pushing a certain slant in the message, emphatically and we know who owns those agencies, that should be a huge red flag as to what the real agenda is at this point. Again, simply to hide the severity of what's going on to the last moment. Back to what I said at the beginning of the show, there's a huge segment of the population that wants to have reality hidden, so they only need to have something to cling on to hold on to that denial, and they do. And the power structure knows this is how much of the population will behave, because who wants to face the fact that they can't buy a new SUV every year and fly off to the Bahamas annually and do all the things that we do in modern civilization. It was a very temporary situation. It's about to come to a screeching halt. So the sooner we face that, the more we'll have to salvage. And that's what's important for everyone to realize, that that's a responsibility, not an obligation. So we again have the military exercises setting up. I just about 10 minutes ago finished a conversation with people who are friends of Chuck Norris, who is on our issue as well. And there's a number of celebrities that are. And hopefully soon we'll be able to join these people together. And again, I had as I mentioned last week's show, I think, or another one, that I had a 3-hour face-to-face with an internationally recognized celebrity that I think would like to connect up with Mr. Norris, and he doesn't want to let his name go at this moment, but certainly there's probably a majority of celebrities that know this is going on, but while everybody's standing alone, that's where they're vulnerable. That's where the media can pick them apart like they did to Kyla, if I'm getting her name right, Jenner. And that's the media's job, to attack, viciously assault anybody who dares speak the truth. Again, back to the Orwellian statement that as a society drifts further from the truth, it will persecute those who try to tell it. It's exactly where we're at. And members of that society behave in the same manner, because somehow they perceive it's for their own self-interest. If they can make you believe that the truth is not really the truth, somehow maybe it'll all go away. Maybe the delusion can continue. And even though driving through Northern California, where I live, a city that was known for its trees and trees dying everywhere, somehow maybe these people in denial feel if they can convince you that it's not really happening, maybe it'll all just go away. And that's not the sign. People who behave in that manner, it's not the sign of a healthy mind. It's absolutely the sign of a mental inability to face reality. And it's something I've said on a previous show as well, but it's important. We have very renowned and grounded, internationally recognized psychologists like Dr. Scott Peck, who had stated the hallmark of a healthy mind is an unwavering willingness to face the truth no matter how dire or bitter. That's what we should strive for. And that's where solace lies again. It's in not turning away from the truth, but facing it head on. So as things unravel around the globe, there's about 3,000 countries that are descending into, again, chaos right now. We have the U.S. maneuvering and using its media propaganda machine in ways that are astounding. In fact, now the latest is that we all face a global threat from North Korea, who can't even feed itself. North Korea, who hasn't invaded anybody, yeah, their rulers are a little bit off. But are they a threat to the United States? Really? Just like Saddam Hussein was a threat? This is the point where Americans should be absolutely standing in the streets and demanding the truth. But they're still too entertained right now. But realities on the ground are going to shatter that delusion soon. They'll have to face the truth. So, again, Russ, I want to get to, I know we spoke earlier off the air, and I know you're still experiencing health issues. A lot of people are. It's growing by the day. But I want to get your take on what's happening out your direction. But as the walls close in, the lies will get bigger, the denial will grow stronger with those who simply don't want to wake up, and the resistance they show toward the truth will become more tenacious. And I'm curious people's perspectives, if those who call in, and if you can call in and again make as short a statement as you can so we can get to as many callers as we can. But I'm curious what people feel, again, about what they're encountering with those around them, the resistance, and how well those of us that are trying to tell the truth are holding up to that resistance. So, Russ, you're holding up. Your health's holding up. I know you said you've been hit with quite a bombardment out there. It's just never ending. Is that still the case?
It's been like that since I've been back from Philadelphia the last couple months. The last 2 days have been different, have changed a little bit. We had a type of aerosol in the mornings, which gave people sore throats. But then the rest of the days were mild. And by mornings, I mean through a good part of the night. And I had reports online that people were having sore throats and getting flu-like symptoms. And it's all coordinated. It seems like the whole Northeast, or a big chunk of the Northeast, is very coordinated in the types of aerosols that we get hit by and the symptom set that people receive. So today we've had, today and yesterday during the daytime, we've had unusually mild days. Although I do see in our Facebook group that people are sharing videos from Tennessee where they're having massive hail. Have you seen that? What's going there?
I have. That hail's cropping up everywhere. And again, when they're ice nucleating any significant amounts of moisture they can, that creates the cold air in the ground. That drops the temperatures temporarily. But that ice nucleation process, just like we saw the ice boulders in Lake Michigan, that was a new phenomenon in the last few years, and you would think that the population, if not the experts who we know their job is to tell us everything's normal when it's anything but one would think the population would scratch their heads about that. So that's the ice forming around that nucleus and going larger and larger into the balls that we see. So the same thing's happening in the clouds. If they start that nucleation process much sooner than it should otherwise start, the hailstones become much bigger, much faster. So it's going to continue to be the norm as they ice nucleate just about everything they can.
You know, it's interesting too, Dane, that they talk about China and Russia being able to stop rain, steer storm systems, to dissipate storm systems, but yet we have to consider, if that's the official story of the U.S. government, that they cannot, or that if this is capable in those countries, and the U.S. keeps denying that we can do this, yet look at what's happening in the Midwest last year. Look at what's happening in Texas. These are, to not do something when they are capable of doing something, would that be considered a crime as well?
Well, it should be. It should be. Again, once the weather system's tampered with, the whole system is disrupted, and we have people like Tom Imhoff stating on the floor of Congress that man could never manipulate the weather, and we have other countries openly admitting that they are doing this as a matter of routine business. It's the sort of disconnect we have in our society. And I'm sure we've all heard someone mention to us, those of us that are trying to show the truth everywhere we go, and I do. I carry flyers in my pocket everywhere I go. And I'm sure we've all heard this. Man, there's no chance man could manipulate the weather. Well, that's going back to the point in time where Copernicus was burned at the stake for having the audacity to insinuate the planet wasn't flat. At a certain point, our society is so incredibly disconnected. They can believe you can talk on the phone to anybody in the world, that kind of technology. That if you mentioned that 100 years ago, you'd have been locked up probably, or 150 years ago. But people just live in their bubbles. They live in their bubbles. They don't want to be disturbed. And even though something is so routine, historically documented as weather modification, people adamantly deny it. Congressmen like Tom Imhoff stick to the lie they're told to spew, because a lot of people just need to hear it from somebody. They don't investigate anything. They don't want to be bothered with the facts. So,
and not only that, Dane, it seems that the more people wake up, when there have been, like this whole thing with Kylie Jenner came out, there was this wave of disinformation that I saw through mainstream media. You have Mikhail Kaku talking about, well, we hope to be able to control the weather at some point in the future. People are scientists are working on this problem. And again, more disinformation. They pretend they can't do now what they're doing and try to convince the public they can't do it now by telling the public that they're trying to do it in the future. They're kind of making a small concession to make it more believable that it's not happening now. Same thing they're doing with geoengineering, same type of disinformation technique.
Those in various areas who are trying to communicate with the local meteorologists, don't do it alone. try to form a group in your area and send communications to your local meteorologist in a more organized fashion, and make it known to that meteorologist again that as the public wakes up to this issue, they will hold people, experts, quote unquote experts, whose job it is to inform the public of hazards, that the public will at some point hold them responsible for their part in this crime. And when they're lying to protect the power structure, they do have a part in this crime. There's no question about that. Elected officials, agency officials, all are part of the crime. And at this point, the power structure from every direction is trying to keep the semblance of normalcy. The stock market being pumped up right now, and economic indicators are extremely bad, getting worse by the day from every direction. The only thing that pacifies the public is the belief that their pension is safe, their stocks are safe, they'll be able to buy a new SUV next year when it comes out, and they'll be able to remain in their delusion. But that's not going to happen. Mathematically, it can't happen. There's too many things that are going to be too hard to hide for much longer at all. So the ride's going to start. Back to the activists, and I want to take calls now. I'm curious what you're encountering. I'm certainly on my end with all the contacts that I have and the people I deal with, I hear from, that certainly many are waking up. And we saw that, in fact, an article yesterday from Guns America, I think, is a site. They're a huge site. They have 800,000 registered readers. And I know when they posted the article that I reposted yesterday on their site alone, and they have their own counter, so I think it's accurate, but they had about 40,000 views by mid-morning on that post. And this is a non-choir group. That's why it's important. This is a group that, and the author of that article, which is their webmaster, was very candid about the fact that he had just woken up to this issue. That we're going to encounter, thankfully, people like that who are not afraid. Once something comes on their radar, they're not afraid to investigate it and face it. And he was not. Paul, who wrote the article, was not afraid and brought so many people to the table with him. And that's the kind of people we need to find and reach as fast as we can. And for those that are impossible to reach, and I get messages from people who, what do I do? I've been trying to reach these people for 6 months, or this person for 6 months. They won't listen to anything. Then move on. Move on. You can only pound your head in the concrete so long before it's completely futile. Plant the seed, move on, find somebody who's willing to wake up. So, Russ, if you can open up the phone lines, and let's see how people's results in the field are going, or if there's anything else pressing someone wants to talk about, you can bring that up too.
Absolutely. We do have people waiting to talk, and for those who want to call in, there's still time. There's plenty of time to call in. The number is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Call it with your number that ends in 03. What is your name? Caller with your number that ends in 03. Last call. Are you there? Your number ends in 03.
Sorry, I was on mute there. This is Allie Larkin, and oh my gosh, where do I begin with? I have my 1, 2, 3. My first one was the fluoride back in 2006, but that's doable to stop. My other one is the electromagnetic radiation microwave frequencies, and the third one, of course, is the chemtrails. And as an elected official and working with government representatives and that, I've really seen the inside of it all. And I find that all three of those things are connected, and I get dismissed and turned away in many different places. But of great interest that I have right now is...
Are you still in that arena right now? I mean, are you still actively working in that arena?
Oh, yes.
So you're attempting to share data on these things within those circles?
Yes, I'm working in all those circles. And, of course, they don't want you to bring them all together, but they are all together. And one of the really big ones right now where I'm participating in and just shocked at what I'm seeing, and that is the Navy's electromagnetic training on the Olympic Peninsula. And they have been holding, I've been to both the town hall meetings, which are Delphi meetings, but and our public lands commissioner said, no, you can't use the public lands. But then the U.S. Forest Service decided to hold listening sessions. And I have attended 2 of those listening sessions with others in my group. And then they would break us into 3 groups for plan revision, science, and public engagement. So we were able to be at all of the tables throughout the moving of the tables in the 5 minutes with the narrator who wrote on the flip chart what they should include, the U.S. Forest Service, in their revision, their 25-year revision of the 100-year-old forest plan. And we were all able to get on every table, every flip chart, that they needed to look at the electromagnetic radiation and the geoengineering of the chemtrails. And I explained to them how the chemtrails were drying out the trees in the forest, how they couldn't take in the water. So I made that all very clear to them, and in fact, to the point when one gal said, "Oh, you be quiet. We've heard from you enough." And she was from Fish and Wildlife, and I looked straight at her and I said, "Well, you better listen, because what you were doing does not matter, not at all. Because if we don't stop those chemtrails and this and this electromagnetic radiation, will all be gone." So, but we have been able to get that information into the U.S. Forest Service, not only the whole region on the West Coast and that. So it is documented and it is on record that that is to be brought into the discussion of the revision of the U.S. Service Forest Plan.
If you could email any confirmation of that, if you can get that to me, admin@geoengineeringwatch.org. I would definitely like to see that, and we would like to. That can help us right now with the ongoing legal efforts. We do have a growing legal team now. Those processes are ongoing. In regard to the Forest Service, USDA, Fish and Game, Bureau of Land Management, all the major agencies, we can go clear back to 1966 with major confirmation that about 10 federal agencies heavily involved with the ongoing U.S. climate modification geoengineering efforts, budgets in the hundreds of millions of dollars, about 12 major universities involved. Again, for anyone who wants to see this document, if you Google 1966 government document geoengineering, I found that on the NASA archives in 2012, I believe, I found that. And that's, get more confirmation of this going on. And perhaps that document might be of use to you to back you up on these sort of meetings.
Yes, I find it very interesting because we have 70 years of documents showing that they knew that fluoride causes harm. We have just as much information showing that the wireless technology is literally put us in a microwave oven. We've got the same thing with the geoengineering and how it was developed and everything else. We have all the evidence. Why is not the tide shifting?
Well, on that note, and this is where I've had some conflict with some people who want to adamantly believe. I mean, you're right. What you're saying is right, and I agree with you. Some feel that the only burden of responsibility lies on those at the very top that are setting up this paradigm. And I absolutely argue that, because we have a society built on the kind of people you just described, the kind of people that we each live next door to in many cases, that are part of these agencies, that are part of the major part of how this insanity is perpetuated day in, day out. They're the building blocks of the insanity that we have to wake up to every morning when each of us wakes up. And I know for me, it's like Groundhog Day. Every day is like Groundhog Day. I wake up and the insanity, the wheels of insanity continue turning. But at the same time, every day I wake up, I know we're one step closer to the various aspects of what's unfolding being impossible to hide, and people are going to be forced to wake. And all those people who have tried to resist or ridicule, they're going to be forced to wake soon. There is solace in that. So simply to keep planting the seeds, there is solace in knowing they'll be forced to sprout. But having a document like what I just described can help to wake those people up, because yes, how is it that these very obvious threats to our health, to the environment, are blatantly, glaringly ignored by the quote-unquote experts, which our society has been trained to listen to over and above their sense of reason, their sense of honor, their sense of morality. If the expert says it's okay, then it's okay. And that lie needs to be obliterated.
Well, what I find amazing, here is an example. I was at a open government transparency training session put on by the state auditor's office. But as a water commissioner, I had followed where the money from the Public Works Trust Fund was going, because they were taking it away from us in all of our infrastructure projects. Over the last few years, over $1 billion it should have gone into the infrastructure. But no, they took it, and it went into the Education Legacy account. Well, nobody knew where it went from there, and I started investigating, found out, hey, it went from there to the Washington Investment Board, where it went to the casino on Wall Street. I have evidence from the government websites to prove that. And after that training, I went up to the acting state auditor, told her that story, showed her that evidence. She agreed with me. She said, yes, we know that's going on, but we can't do anything about it. You have to talk to the legislators. I looked at her. We were in the State Attorney General's conference room having this meeting. I pointed behind me to the state capitol, and I said, you mean those clowns over there under the big top? And she laughed. But here she is, our Washington state auditor, telling me, yes, we know what's going on, but we can't do anything about it.
Ollie, if you can stay on the air, if that's not too much trouble, I would like to communicate with you after the show for just a minute, if you have time.
Sure.
Thank you. And this is imperative that some of the data you have right now, again, with the growing legal team that's coming together with attorneys that we would not have been able to access had we not reached this level of awareness and had they not realized that they are going down on the ship with the rest of us. That's what's so critical about critical mass. A lot of people have questioned what's the point in critical mass. That's the point. The point is, once you reach critical mass, and a lot of people who are going along with the delusion realize that they're on a sinking ship, and if they don't start bailing fast, and their families...
Some of them are bailing. I have made one bail for conflict of interest from the board of water board that I sat on because he was on too many fire department and city council and water district. Excuse me, whose table do you sit on? Isn't that a conflict of interest? He resigned. But what we're doing here, we're using common law in Seattle right now. And we, our group SUMA, we have served notice of liability on the harm done from smart meters. Well, it's kind of interesting, since this process began in August of 2014, 3 of the council members, the ones with the biggest pockets are donors and well-vested, are stepping down, as well as the CEO of 11 years, Jorge Carrasco of Seattle Public Utilities. And they have refused to respond, so we have now sent them a bill for not, because we didn't consent and they did not respond properly. So this is really in progress there. They are taking notice, but we are so fed up with the fluoride issue and the city council not hearing us, and last Tuesday they shoved us in a closed-door meeting with the pro-fluoride people instead of having the whole city council there, only a representative, and the Washington Action for Safe Water, and the Seattle Public Utilities, King County Health, all of those people there in a closed-door meeting, not recorded, not public record, not to be shown on the television. So and we're now thinking of filing another notice of liability from the harm done by the fluoride. So,
and these are all important issues. Again, I don't argue that. In fact, I went to a public meeting last night in which a lot of Northern California officials are being discussed. Their tyrannical behaviors being discussed, and certain issues are being brought to the table. But at that meeting, my point at that meeting, which had 100 and something people at it, was a lot of constitutional issues were being discussed as well, our liberties and so forth. The point I tried to drive home at that meeting, that although all those issues were important that they were discussing, that there is in fact a superseding issue, and that issue is what's being done in our skies. And if we don't deal with that issue above all others, at the moment in time the power structure feels they're losing control, they're already poisoning us all slowly right now. And again, there's so many layers to the weather modification. They're trying to take water rights. They're using it as weather warfare. They're softening up populations wherever they want to destabilize countries. There are so many layers to the onion, but the bottom line is we know that these materials are falling on us. We know they're toxic. And whatever the various agendas of the power structure, it amounts to biological warfare. That's at minimum what's happening right now. And as the power structure knows,
war.
It's just, it is correct. It's a silent war right now, but a very effective war. But at any moment in time, and this is what I tried to drive home at the meeting I was at last night with these community representatives, at any moment they choose, if the power structure changes that mix, if they feel they're truly losing control, they can level the field anytime they want. The climate engineering issue is the gun to our head, and every pull of the trigger, it could go off. Every day that goes on, that they spray, we don't know what's in that, but we know we have to inhale it and breathe it. So bottom line is, with all the critical issues we face, I still would argue that fluoride's important. There's many other important issues as well, but the superseding issue we must deal with is the climate engineering.
And I know I suffer from chemtrail flu. I even go outside when they're spraying my eyes water, my nose waters. It's terrible. The symptoms that I feel from the chemtrails and the electromagnetic radiation, it diminishes the quality of my life.
And that's going to get rapidly worse for all of us. So stay in line if you would, Ollie. I'm going to try to grab a few more callers right now. If you can stay with us, and I just want to give you a contact after the show as well. Russ, how are we doing on calls?
Absolutely. We do have calls waiting. Thank you, Allie, so much. And I guess, Allie, you're going to stay on the line with us so you can chat afterwards.
Go ahead, Russ.
All right, very good. Caller with your number that ends in 50. Who are we speaking with?
Alan David.
Hey, Alan.
Hello, Alan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you good. What's up? How's things, Alan?
I don't know if you got the email. I gave you a return email. I never heard anything back, but I have a question about the denial of government officials and people who are supposed to be in responsible positions. Do you know, or are you aware of any admission or confirmation, either in writing or, by interview or recording, by any government officials that there is, in fact, a hole in the Northern Hemisphere ozone?
Yes, we have that as a record. If you Google massive Northern Hemisphere ozone hole, you'll find data from the Canadian government trying to silence the Arctic ozone monitoring team. And on the email you sent, if I don't respond, send it again, because some of my emails aren't getting through. Sometimes I might miss one in the avalanche of them I get every day, but send it again. But yes, there is no question there's a massive Northern Hemisphere ozone hole. I've documented that. I put links to that. If you search GeoEngineering is destroying the ozone layer, you can see some of those links to some of those articles in that piece that I posted when we were through with our first round of metering UV radiation on the ground and how astronomically high it is. It's off the scale. And again, for those that try to deny that, bark doesn't get burnt off the trunks of trees. Cambrian layers on the trunks of native trees don't get fried off the exposed side of the tree without an awful lot of UV radiation. So there's no question. I mean, they can hide anything from us at this point. They can demo buildings, bring them to the ground. I know I use that example a lot, but certainly we know the official story on 9/11 was nonsense. I don't think anybody argues that one. And we have a population that goes right back about their business because they don't want to know. They absolutely don't want to know, but they're not going to have a choice soon again. So, yes, massive Northern Hemisphere ozone hole. Google GeoEngineering is destroying the ozone layer.
Do we have any U.S. officials admitting to it that it exists?
No. How could they? How could they? We see what happens to Kaylee Jenner. I hope I'm getting her name right again. I'm a little bit off on that, but anybody who says anything that they don't want them to say is absolutely crucified. I have another fish and game biologist friend, 30-year fish and game biologist, head water quality testing biologist in Northern California, has finally had to walk away from her post because she is beaten into the ground. If she tries to bring anything up, the fact that the streams are flowing with aluminum, she tries to mention geoengineering, they hammer her right into the dirt. So no, these officials aren't about to speak out. You find very few people that have that kind of willingness, tenacity. People like Francis Mangels, who I highly respect, U.S. Forest Service biologist that I think fought tooth and nail the whole way when he was within the agency and just beaten up over and over by the pack of tyrants that always occupy these agencies. I know people in these agencies, and they are, with few exceptions, they are absolutely spineless. I've been in the field operating a D6 in fires on a fire line, operating a high-track Cat D6 with firemen who wouldn't put a drop of water on me, not a drop, because they don't want somebody there actually fighting the fire. Their superiors around, and there are some good people in these fire agencies too. Again, I'm not saying they're all like this, but there's an awful lot. They stack these agencies. They become like those in the agencies, even if they went in as honest men and women. The agencies break them down. It's why I left Bechtel Power at a very young age, because I saw men and women, I knew men and women, I worked with men and women that I believe were honest and honorable ones that had long since given up on their sense of virtue. And I was not willing to become like them, so I left when I was 22 years old, a very high-paying job with a very powerful company that had a long career ahead of me because I didn't want to become like them. But that's not the norm. And again, people in these agencies, they become like those they're around. And after a while, the cancer is so immense and so expansive, it just swallows everybody up that comes near it.
The reason I ask about the ozone, whether there are any admissions, is because I have a document that's a declassified document dated in 1974, weather modification, and it contains the testimony of secret warfare expert G. Gordon, and he states point blank that in their future they will be able to open up a hole in the ozone as secret warfare, as a method of secret warfare. And that's documented. So he also states that another method of secret warfare will be to put steaming hot water, injecting it into the earth and causing earthquakes. And that's what they do with fracking. So, you know, there you go, and it's documented. This was declassified. So I just wanted to know if we have...
I would like to... I definitely want to get your email. If that's what you're trying to send to me, I definitely want to get it. And if you want to stay on the show to make sure you have my email address right and we're done, that's fine. And I want to give you a separate email besides the admin email. On the opening up a hole in the ozone layer. Now, one thing we've noted with metering on the ground, when we see over, for example, Northern California, where we have our best meters, when they are spraying the shorter bright trails on an otherwise clear day, and the sky becomes ever more silvery white, and you get this hail, this haze, the silvery white skies, we see higher UV readings on those days than an otherwise clear day. And that would certainly correlate with what you're showing. And given that we know that they can microwave these particles, the friction of those particles together in the upper atmosphere, there's a lot of reactions that we can't even fully know about because we don't have access to the studies to know about it, but we absolutely, positively are seeing higher UV readings on our meters on those days. You can feel the more intense UV on those days. There's no question. So that would correlate with what you have there. And again, all of this boils down to one central conclusion, is that we are all under all-out weather warfare, assaults, biological assaults, and this is why we're all in this battle.
Well, yeah, I can tell. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I have all that research, and I'm just looking for key pieces because I'm getting ready to put in a administrative thing. A while ago, I sent you an email, a copy of a response I got from a Public Records Act request from the head of the California Aeronautics Division, who admitted that there is no policy in the state of California regarding geoengineering or weather modification. Did you get that email? Or did you get that?
I don't think they'll come through. And again, I've had 3 major radio show hosts that called after their 6th or 7th email didn't get to me. So, Alan, if you're going to stay on the show, if you can stay with Allie too, I'll just make sure you guys both have the right contacts. I'll give you another way to reach me if I don't respond back, which means I'm not getting it. If you don't mind staying on the show, that would be great. We'll do that real quickly right after the show. And let me try to grab a couple more calls right now while we can. But I definitely want access to what you have, Alan. That would help us from both you and Allie. Russ, got any more?
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan, for calling. Caller with your number that ends in 86. What's your first name? Okay, caller. Looks like we've got Vincent with us. Vincent, you on the line?
Hey, Russ. Hey, Dane.
Hi, Vincent.
Hey, I was calling in defense from earlier last week. There was a comment that was made that this Agenda 21 and global warming, this Al Gore rhetoric is being propped up here at GeoEngineering Watch. And I would like to say, under observation, that going back into the 70s, my uncle said then that you couldn't hang meat like you used to in the old days. They'd hang meat, in the smokehouse and so forth. They'd butcher the pigs in the fall, whatnot. But so he said that the winters did not hold consistent anymore. So we can easily observe that just in observation of the weather patterns of today. There's never a below freezing zone, continually. As far as I can observe where I'm at here in the Ozarks of Arkansas, and just because that there is some similarities between a narrative does not mean that you are like on board with this Agenda 21 depopulation and the global warming narrative as purported for carbon taxing. So I just wanted to make that clear because that was a question that was brought up last week, and I would ask for your response then from there, and I'll hang up and listen on air. Thanks.
Thanks, Vincent. Thanks for bringing that up. And so I'll clarify my position again about Al Gore. Yes, Al Gore's data is largely wrong in the opposite direction of what the people who bring that kind of statement up to you think. It's far worse. Our climate situation is far worse than anything Al Gore pointed out. I don't like Al Gore. His hypocrisy is immense, but that doesn't mean that the basic points he brought up were wrong. I've made this argument over and over and over. If Al Gore said the Earth was round, should we take the position that's flat? And I know I'm upsetting a few flat earthers out there, and I'm not kidding. I'm sorry. I mean, I got a lot of flats and some, and I'm sorry. The Earth is not flat, but that's the basic mentality. That if somebody that we don't like, that we don't agree with, Al Gore, while he made this movie, had stock in BP, stock in ExxonMobil. What kind of a person is supposedly engaged in the fight he's engaged in and supporting the very companies he claims to be fighting? How much sense does that make? Doesn't have any solar on his homes, flying around in jets. So, yes, his hypocrisy is wrong, but that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater. And those kind of dichotomous thinking people who then lump you into some category, I can't help them. I'm not going to waste my time trying. Their denial is every bit as bad as those who believe in our government. Therefore, our government can do nothing wrong, even though we see it every day. Those are people who aren't willing to actually look at reality and connect the dots properly. So, yes, the planet is not just warming, it's in total meltdown, and climate engineering is making it worse, not better. That's my position. I stand by it. I don't care if it's popular or not. I'm not in this for a popularity contest. I'm in this to try to tell the truth as the data dictates. So, Vincent, thank you for bringing that up. That's my position, and I stand by it. Russ, we got any more calls?
Yep, thank you. If anybody would like to call in, we do have room for more callers. We got 15 minutes left in the show, and we'd like you to call 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. A lot of times we hear from Gary in Tampa. I think he's in the chat room. We'd love to hear from you, too, if you're let us know what's going on, because you've always got something going on down there.
Russ, are you seeing that? Okay, we got a caller on right now. If we don't, I have a question for you, Russ.
No, go ahead, Dane.
I mean, are you seeing the major temperature swings in your neck of the woods as well?
Absolutely. In fact, we just had last night, we had a sudden big drop. I mean, it's been very warm here for a while, and now it's dropped. I don't know what the current temperature is, but it's so cold. There's a fire in the wood-burning stove to keep the house warm tonight. It has dropped very suddenly, very rapidly, starting last night. So very strange drops in temperature.
Yeah, this is what happens when they're ice nucleating moisture that's above. It feels like someone opened the refrigerator door. But what the media doesn't report on, again, places like India, places like the heat in South America, even Southern Africa right now, you have immensely warm temperatures all over. You have ocean temperatures that are off the charts. You know, this is a simple, undeniable reality that's going on. You have marine life that's undergoing mass migration, something that has not occurred based on paleo data for at least 3 million years since the Pliocene epoch. There are immense things happening, and too many people have bought into the exact propaganda lie that the mainstream media and all the power structure-owned weather disseminating agencies wanted them to buy into. The off-and-on cool-down of the eastern U.S. has convinced them that the whole world is cold, and that could not be a bigger lie. Absolutely couldn't be a bigger lie. And those people claim to be fighting geoengineering and not recognizing these cool-downs as being completely engineered events are missing the point. So I simply hope that people look at all the data, abandon their preconceptions, and when you're looking at data, for example, and a lot of people, I see data, for example, from Forbes magazine cited. What side of the fence do any of us think Forbes magazine is on, really? Somebody from Wall Street, what side are they on? Are they on the side of preserving the planet, or are they on the side of continued growth of industrialized civilization? That's not hard to figure out. When I see an article on Forbes that contains a chart that has no source reference whatsoever, how is that to be considered a credible source of data? A chart that goes against every single verifiable source of data out there. It's not hard to figure this stuff out. People just simply need to get past their bias. So anyway, Russ, if we have a call, let's go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Kim, I see that you're on the line with us. How you doing, Kim?
Hi, good evening. Let me just take a quick second to shut the sound off on the broadcast so I can hear you guys really good. Hold on 1 second. I got it. Okay. Yeah, major temperature drop. What is going on? I mean, for the last 3 days, it's been between 43, 45 degrees, lows in the mornings and overnight, highs around 50, no higher than 52. I mean, people are running their furnaces. And what's really upsetting is if you're an apartment dweller, all the landlords are allowed to shut the heat off by May 15th. But what heat off means is that they're supposed to turn the heat off unless it drops below 68 degrees, which is the temperature set by someone to decide that it's fair and reasonable housing, that if the temperature drops below 68 degrees inside your dwelling, that you're allowed to have heat. So if it's 45 degrees outside, it's going to be 65 degrees inside. It's the general, based on the way our buildings are made here. So we've been waking up around 63 degrees in the middle of the night every night. And I mean, I've got sweaters on. The dogs, believe it or not, we're all wearing sweatshirts and covering ourselves up. It's absolutely freezing cold. It's just completely insane temperatures.
I'm curious if people around you thus probably feel, as a lot of people do on the East Coast, that it's cold all over. I mean, some of the people around you must feel that, right? I mean, they live in the cold, so they must feel that. I wonder if they know that right now in Canada there's some 70 wildfires burning, some near or on the Arctic Circle, 36 of them out of control. Temperatures again in Alaska pushing the mid-90s. Temperature in Siberia starting in April in the mid-80s, now pushing into the 90s. We don't hear about any of that. We don't hear about the 2,500 people dead in India because temperatures are hovering around 120 degrees and not cooling off at night at all. No, I mean, how many people around you do you think have any clue about any of that type of data?
Oh, absolutely none. And the only place that I've seen people that know about it is like in the Global Skywatch group. because I'm a weather nut. I watch the weather all over the country just because I want to know how many days of rain am I going to get, how cold is it going to be, and then I start looking around all over the United States, and I'm seeing major swings, like you were saying, major heat in some areas, and other areas are absolutely freezing. That I'm seeing constant rain forming in the same location in the south central U.S. over and over and over and over and over again, and it's absolutely insane. I mean, the connections are being made. Mm-hmm.
They have to have moisture in order to cool things down. So here's part of the equation that can't be hidden too much longer. Methane counts in the Arctic are pushing now 3,000 ppb, 3,000 parts per billion. The planet has not gotten over 700 parts per billion for the last million years. Methane, again, over a 10-year time horizon, is about 120 times more potent than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. You can't hide that. Nighttime lows rising twice as fast as daytime highs. It doesn't cool off here in Northern California at night. Moisture moved over us in the last few days. They didn't let any of it fall. They just used it for a temporary cool down. I'm looking at the skies right now as I speak with harp ribs and rings everywhere above the clouds. We're going back up to 100 degrees in the next couple of days. We have been constantly in Northern California, constantly for the last 2 years, 15 degrees above normal, day and night, relentlessly. It's killing everything here. The forest is silent. The media focuses on what they want the population to believe, and the greatest percentage of population. Look at a map of the U.S. at night. Anybody can Google this on a satellite. Look at a satellite image of the U.S. at night. You can see where the lights are. Where the lights are is where the people are. And look at where all the lights are. The eastern half of the U.S. lower 48. And that's the half they want to keep confused and divided as long as they can.
Yeah, they sure do. Yeah. Well, Kim, thanks for your question. I appreciate that. We could probably squeeze in a couple more callers.
Yeah, try to grab it soon.
Yeah, Dane, I'm sharing Kim's concern here because in Maine we just had this sudden temperature drop. Caller with your number that ends in 09. What is your first name?
Hello.
Hello. Who are we speaking with?
Yeah. Hi, this is James from Ohio. Hi, Dane. Hi, Russ.
Hi, James.
How are you?
Hi, good. Actually, I've talked to you a couple times through email, Dane. You're the one that sent me the flyers about a year and a half ago.
Yep, glad to do
it. I really don't know where to start here. You guys are talking a lot about temperatures in Ohio. This is a tough place to convince people of what's going on because our weather around here. I mean, I've lived here most of my life, and it changes changes a lot. But we've had below normal temperatures in the last couple months, far more than we've had above. So, but one of the things for me. I talk to people a lot. I try to talk to people a lot about this. And, the thing for me is why. I'm a big picture guy, and, I want to know why. And I've got a good idea, but like I was reading an article, on your page earlier by the, I can't remember the name now, I'm not looking at it, but he had a lot to say about it, a lot of scenarios and theories. But, when it comes down to this cool down in the eastern half of the United States and, in the drought in California, I have no doubt that this is being done by GeoEngineering. But it's like, why do they want to keep people, do you think, why do you think they want to keep people confused in the eastern half? And, and the person who wrote the article said they want to keep an opposition, and that kind of got me thinking, but I don't really quite understand, what their point would be from doing that.
Because a confused and divided population has no way of standing against the power structure that's sucking the noose around their neck by the day. And that's exactly what they're doing. At the same time, they're providing time for themselves while the population remains confused, divided, and completely unorganized in any sort of opposition. They are digging in. Quite literally, they are digging in and preparing for total collapse, which is an absolute inevitability on this course, period. Industrialized civilization is in its death throes right now. So from every angle, James, from the climate to the economy, which is a complete facade. Unemployment is a complete lie. Economic growth is a complete lie. It's simply a snake in its own tail. They're trying from every direction they can, from every angle they can, to keep the semblance of normalcy, to fuel the normalcy bias of the population until the last possible moment. And when collapse comes, it's going to come fast and furious. It's not going to be with some warning out off the horizon somewhere. And the same is true with the climate. And they know this. They know they can't hide this much longer. They know people are waking up. They know there's too many holes in the dike developing. They don't have enough fingers and toes to plug those holes. And they know this. So we're in a race toward the intersection. If we can take a quantum leap in the right direction, it's by doing this, by beating them to the intersection, by exposing climate engineering, which is the single most catalyzing issue that we could expose globally more than any other, because everyone's been hurt. If we could expose this before they have all their pieces in place, before they're ready for a collapse, before they're prepared, that's the greatest leap we could take in the right direction of all. And while there's still some semblance of the planet's life support system left to save, but that confusion and division has worked. You must know it's worked, because how many people do we hear from that rant, oh, global warming's nonsense because look at all the snow in Boston. It's if they were
I see activists post those kind of comments, and they don't even haven't figured it out yet. But it just doesn't seem like they're hiding this out west. I have no doubt they've caused a drought in California. And look what they've done. I believe what they did in Texas, over the last couple of weeks. I mean, I was watching that on satellite. I mean, I'm like, this is not normal. I'm not an expert. I got a degree in geography. I've taken some meteorology classes, but I knew better. I mean, that they don't see that kind of moisture, for extended periods of time like that this time of year. But it's just they're not hiding it out there, and I don't know. The eastern half. I mean, is it political, or is that a lot of their operations are out of there? So, D.C. I live right down the street. I live right down the street from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I see them coming in and out of there. I mean, I know exactly what kind of aircraft they use.
Think about the effect on people you even know, James. I mean, look at Paul or Tom Imhoff. Do you think he would have really the ground to say the sort of nonsense he says, throw like a snowball into Congress, whatever he did, if there wasn't some sort of event that he could stand on as the premise for his idiocracy? And as far as people, taking the bait, if you will, they want to take the bait. That's the point I'm trying to make. Much of the population wants to believe the lies. I mean, when you can have a picture, one point I want to make, that a picture of the 6-story high digital billboard in Times Square that Richard Gage and his group, Architects and Engineers for Truth, paid for to show Building 7 collapsing. And I'm tired of the Judy Wood argument. Well, I don't care what happened, okay? And I'm tired of people throwing that at me. There's 2,200 Architects and Engineers for Truth compared to one single person that has an opinion. I lean toward the Architects and Engineers, but whatever the case, I think we all agree on this. Building 7 didn't fall down from the fires in the first floor. We all agree on that. That showed in Times Square over and over for a month. Did the population do anything? They didn't do a damn thing because they don't want to know.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've had people look to me and go, look, I live in a bubble, and that's why I like it. And I just move on. And I move on. One thing real quick, if I can. I've had some health issues that I believe is, at least this, geoengineering is contributed. I don't know if I've had some AFib episodes. I've had to go to the hospital, but, I've confronted a lot of doctors, and I've even confronted a lot of professionals in academia about this, and they've looked me right in the face and said they're not allowed to talk about it.
Better wrap it up quick, James, because we're almost out of time, I think.
But I just wonder, I wonder if attacking this from a medical standpoint might not be a bad idea. I mean, when you look a doctor in the face and tell them, you're subjected to toxins and metals, and they refuse to test you, that seems negligent to me.
We're working on. In fact, sorry to cut you off. I don't have a watch in front of me. I don't know how close we are, but we're working on the medical end. We're working on the medical end right now, James.
James, I believe you're exactly right. Barium actually depletes potassium in the body, causes fibrillations, and can lead to a heart attack, which is what happened to me. This is GeoEngineering Watch Radio. We're here every Tuesday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Pacific Time at ucy.tv. This is Russ Tanner on behalf of Dane Wigington.